Welcome to Chloe's story time. Hope you have great time to listen the story.
In my previous life, it was Jason Miller, serving as the representative of the promotion review board, who blocked my promotion for 10 whole years. He told me, as my wife, you need to avoid any hint of favoritism. That was only the second year. There was still a chance, or so I thought. By the 5th year, he said to me, Emily, you should leave more opportunities for the younger generation. Back in our day, we only got into the research institute because the older folks stepped aside. In the final year, I knew that if I didn't get promoted then, I'd be forced into early retirement. I pleaded with him desperately. But the next day, the person who ranked first on the promotion list turned out to be his old flame, the woman he had never forgotten. That time, the man who had always been so high-sounding and proper used every connection he had to knock me off the list again. I was completely eliminated, and my final chance at advancement was taken from me. Racked with boundless regret and bitterness, I died from the anger. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I was about to submit the application to withdraw from college. Emily, I'm heading to work, Jason's voice called out. Don't forget to go see the teacher and get your withdrawal form back. I heard the door close and snapped up from bed. Looking around at the old apartment, clearly from 3 or 4 decades ago, it finally hit me. I had been reborn. I had returned to 1977, the second year of our marriage. Jason and I had both been accepted into Northwest University of Technology. But just last night, his mother had broken her leg, so after some discussion, we agreed that I would withdraw my college application, give up my chance to attend university, and stay behind to continue working at the military factory. He, on the other hand, would follow the original plan and go study in the Northwest. The next year, I had wanted to apply for college again, but I found out I was pregnant, so I had to put that plan aside. From then on, we lived apart for more than 10 years. During those years, I raised our child alone, took care of my parents, and worked full-time. Eventually, I became a technician and was finally transferred into the Research Institute, just in time for Jason to return. With his impressive resume, he quickly became the head of the institute. Over the next 10 years, I tried to advance further, but each year I was blocked. The first year, he removed me from consideration, saying he didn't want others to gossip about him, promoting his own wife. Try again next year, he said. The second year, he said I still had a chance, and that I should take the time to deepen my skills and technical knowledge. Year after year, I kept being eliminated. By the 5th year, I was still rejected. Humiliated and frustrated, I finally asked him, why? All the other leaders at the institute think my technical skills are excellent. Why is it always you who blocks me? He stayed quiet for a while, then finally said, Emily, you should leave more opportunities for the younger generation. If the elders back then hadn't stepped aside, we wouldn't have had such an easy time getting into the institute. In the final year, I knew it was my last chance. If I didn't get promoted then, I'd be forced to retire. I begged him, but the next day I found out the person ranked at the top of the promotion list was his old love. That time, the man who always talked about fairness and procedure once again used all his connections to eliminate me from the running, robbing me of my final opportunity. It was only then that I realized, during all those years we lived apart, Jason had never truly been alone. That woman had stayed by his side the entire time, never marrying, never having children, just to be with him. In the end, he couldn't bear to see her leave the Research Institute, so he cut me instead. When I saw the list, I instinctively looked at the two of them. Jason looked relieved, and that woman was crying tears of joy. In that moment, I felt like I had been part of some shameful, silent scheme between the two of them. My chest tightened at the thought, and I covered my face with trembling hands. Tears spilled uncontrollably through my fingers and soaked into the bedding. That one foolish decision. I spent my entire life paying for it. After calming down, I quietly made breakfast, ate, then headed to the factory to find my supervisor. I haven't submitted my withdrawal form yet, I told him. You've changed your mind? He asked. I smiled apologetically. I'm really sorry, sir. He waved his hand and returned the form to me. Emily, getting into Northwest University of Technology is an honor for our factory too. Just the day before yesterday, I was trying to persuade the committee, saying it would be such a shame if you didn't go. I didn't expect you'd change your mind so quickly. Looks like Jason's words did the trick, huh? I smiled, thanked him, and walked out of the factory. The moment I stepped outside, I tore the form into pieces and threw it into the trash can. Looking at the shredded bits inside, I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. So the supervisor had actually tried to persuade Jason Miller to let me go to college in the Northwest, but he had never mentioned a word of it. On the contrary, he had even urged me to hurry and retrieve my withdrawal form. In my past life, I gave up my future, my education, and my opportunities to support him so he could study without worry. And what did he do? He met a kindred spirit at college, someone he connected with emotionally. Then, for the sake of that woman, he blocked my promotion year after year. In the final year, he even went as far as to use every personal connection he had, just to protect his so-called true love, and strike me off the list. I returned home with my eyes still red. I sat there in a daze for most of the day before I finally got up and began packing. The semester was starting soon, and it was a long journey. The train ticket I had bought earlier had already been taken by Jason. He said he would go return it for me. When we bought the tickets, there hadn't been 2 seats available on the same day, so we had to travel a day apart. My departure was scheduled a day earlier than his, meaning I was supposed to leave tomorrow morning. I had to find a way to get that ticket back, otherwise it might be too late to buy a new one. I silently made lunch, thinking of it as a farewell meal between the me from my past life and this new beginning, with Jason as the final guest. Just as I finished placing the last dish on the table, Jason came home. "This is the prescription. You'll need to go to the pharmacy once a week to refill it," he said, handing me a slip of paper. "I'm leaving the day after tomorrow. Let's go take a photo together tomorrow." That triggered a memory. In my past life, before he left, he had also asked me to take a picture with him. And for the next 10 years, while he was off living freely, I clung to that one photo, raising our child, caring for his parents, and sacrificing my own future. I forced a smile. "Sure," I said. "That is, if you can find me tomorrow." While we were eating, I casually asked, "By the way, did you return my train ticket?" Without even looking up, he replied, "Not yet. I was going to take care of it this afternoon." "Then give it back to me," I said after a pause. "I'll go return it myself." "I thought you were busy?" "I have time. I need to pick up a certification this afternoon anyway." I was worried I might not make it in time to cancel the ticket. Jason handed it to me, and I let out a long sigh of relief once I had it back in my hands. After Jason left that afternoon, I gathered up everything in the house that I regularly used. I gave away what I could, sold what was sellable. That evening, Jason came home again, this time with his mother in tow. In my past life, he had brought her back the following day, so I was a little stunned to see her arrive early. "What's with that look? Not happy to see me?" she said. Jason had grown up in a single-parent household, raised by his mother who had a hard life. He was very devoted to her, and she was extremely domineering. In my past life, I sympathized with his struggles and accommodated him in everything. I served her without complaint for over a decade, until the end of my life. But no matter how much I gave, Jason was still constantly critical of me. Now that I'd been reborn, I had no intention of indulging him anymore. "You didn't tell me your mom was coming today," I said. "The place isn't tidied up yet. You'll need to wait a bit." Jason looked surprised when I called him by his full name, because I used to call him Jay. He assumed I was upset that he had brought his mother over suddenly, so he quickly explained, "I happened to be out picking up paperwork and ran into a friend with a car. I figured I might as well bring Mom over now. Whether it's today or tomorrow, it makes no difference, right?" His mother's expression soured as soon as she saw him trying to explain himself to me, like he needed my permission to bring her home. Jason, seeing her displeasure, quickly said, "Let's give Mom our room. We'll sleep in the other one tonight." I didn't care. I was leaving tomorrow anyway. Where she slept made no difference to me. His mother moved into our bedroom and looked visibly more satisfied, but of course, she didn't sit still for long. In no time, she was ordering me to bring her tea, fetch her water, and even wash her feet. I busied myself arranging things in the other room and pretended not to hear. Seeing the look on my face, Jason ended up doing everything himself. I was finally able to finish organizing my things. As soon as Jason flopped onto the bed, he sighed dramatically, "I'm exhausted." Then he added, "Emily, my mom is particular about things. You'll need to be more attentive from now on, okay? Don't make her feel unwelcome here." I let out a cold laugh and gave a half-hearted sure. The moment I lay down, Jason kicked toward me. Annoyed, I scooted over and said, "Your mom's in the next room." His breath tickled the back of my neck as his hands started creeping under the blanket. "She won't hear anything," he whispered. But just as the words left his mouth, his mother called out from the next room, "Emily, come help me to the bathroom." I shut my eyes in mock amusement and said nothing. Jason sighed and got up. "Where's your wife? Why is it always you helping me?" his mother asked pointedly. "Go back to sleep, Mom. I've got it," he said. "You need to rest. I still have to meet a friend tomorrow, and I'm heading out to the Northwest the day after. I don't want to be too worn out." Right after that, I heard the loud clanging of objects being deliberately moved around, his mother clearly making noise on purpose to express her displeasure. I tuned her out completely and soon drifted off to sleep. The next morning I woke up at 6. When Jason heard me moving around, he thought I was heading to the market. "Mom likes pork liver," he said. "See if you can buy some." I didn't even look back. After washing up, I grabbed the suitcase I had packed in advance and headed straight to the train station. It wasn't until I got there that I realized how hungry I was. I bought a few flatbreads from a stall outside the station. I had planned to make some yesterday so I'd have food for the road, but with Jason's mother showing up, I decided to avoid any extra trouble and gave up on the idea. The train ride took 4 long, bumpy days. By the time I arrived at school, I was completely drained. After getting all the formalities done, I collapsed into bed in the dorm and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. It was my dorm mates who eventually woke me up. Like me, they had come from all over the country. Once everyone was rested, we decided to go eat together at the cafeteria. On the first official day of school, I honestly didn't think I'd see Jason in class. After all, his mother still needed someone to take care of her. But moments later, the door slammed open. And there he was, storming toward me with a dark expression. Jason yanked me roughly out of the classroom and dragged me across the field. "Emily, what the hell are you doing?" he snapped. He looked furious, like I had committed some kind of unforgivable crime. "What is this? Weren't we clear that you'd give up college to stay home and take care of Mom? Why did you sneak off to the Northwest behind my back? Do you have any idea that my mom has no one at home now? How is she supposed to live?" Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. "Go pack your things. You're coming home with me right now. I already spoke to the school, told them you're taking a leave of absence." I yanked my arm free and stared at him. "What did you just say?" Jason gave a cold laugh, his eyes filled with frustration. "Emily, what are you trying to pull? Do you even remember you're someone's wife? You left my mom behind so you could come here and enjoy yourself? Does that sit right with your conscience?" I stared at him, stunned. Even though I had spent a lifetime with this man in my past life, in that moment, he felt like a complete stranger. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "Your mother got injured, and as her daughter-in-law, it's my duty to give up everything and stay behind to care for her. That's just expected. But me coming here to attend a university I worked my butt off to get into, that's me being selfish? Me causing trouble?" Jason's breathing turned uneven as he stared at me. It was as if he had finally snapped out of his rage and come to his senses. He reached for my hand. "Emily, I'm sorry," he said. "It's my fault. I got too worked up." He tried to explain. "It's just, when I saw you were gone, and your things were gone too, I panicked. We had agreed you'd take a break from school to stay home and help out. We talked about this, didn't we? But you left without a word. You left a mess behind. What do you expect me to do?" Jason looked completely worn out. It was obvious he hadn't slept well on the train, and likely not at home either these past 2 days. I remembered all too well how hard his mother had been to deal with in my past life. When I was the one taking care of her, she'd wake me up dozens of times a night. For months, I never got a single night of good sleep. But who in my past life ever showed me an ounce of understanding for all my suffering? And now Jason Miller, who had taken care of his own mother for just 2 nights, was already calling her a burden? I looked at him coldly. Yes, we did agree that I'd give up school to stay home and take care of your mom. But you've only done it for 2 days, haven't you? So, how's it going? Comfortable, is it? That's your own mother, and even you already see it as a mess. Then what gives you the right to so naturally dump that mess on me? Jason's temper snapped. What gives me the right? Because she's my mom, and your mother-in-law. Isn't that enough reason? I snapped. And what about my mother? I lost my father when I was a child. My mom raised me on her own, saw me through to adulthood, even helped me get married. She gave everything to me. And now what? Jason was losing control. Emily, she's my mom. Exactly, I cut him off. She's your mom, not mine. Yes, she's had it rough, but the hardship your mom endured, wasn't that caused by your father? So why is it me, the daughter-in-law, who has to repay that debt? Just because I married into your family, I'm supposed to sacrifice everything and work like a mule for the Millers? Jason's face twisted in anger. He let out a harsh snort, then without warning, raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face. My head whipped to the side from the impact. Gasps erupted around us. Oh my God, he hit her. Seriously? A grown man hitting a woman? He's worse than an animal. My cheeks stung and went numb. I pressed my tongue to the inside of it and stood silent for a moment. Then I lifted my head. Jason quickly hid his hand behind his back, guilt flashing across his face. Emily, I didn't mean to. We're getting a divorce, I said calmly. What? Jason's face drained of color. I said we're getting a divorce. I repeated each word clearly and slowly, then turned and walked straight toward the department chair's office. To be honest, the thought of divorce had come to me on the very first day I was reborn, but I knew that if I had brought it up back then, I wouldn't have made it to school as smoothly as I did. So I had held back. Still, I never imagined Jason would be so heartless as to abandon his injured mother and come all the way to school himself, only to do something even more despicable. He had gone behind my back and told the faculty I should withdraw from school. And what was his excuse? That I could take the test again next year? As if retaking the exam were guaranteed, as if my dreams and efforts meant nothing at all. His attitude, like I didn't even matter, made me sick to my stomach. In my past life, I gave everything. For him, for our child, for that marriage. And what did I get in return? He found a kindred spirit in college. He became my superior and then blocked my promotion for 10 straight years. Every time I tried to confide in our child about my frustration, they'd always take his side, saying, "Dad's had it tough too," or "You're doing fine at home taking care of them." My hopes, my dreams, my career, they were never even considered. None of it mattered to them. But I've walked the wrong path once before, and I will absolutely not let myself fall into the same trap again. When I explained to Professor Shi that Jason's mother had only broken her leg, she wasn't paralyzed or bedridden, and she didn't need constant care, the professor looked speechless. My academic record was excellent, 40 points higher than Jason's. On top of that, I'd worked 3 years at a military factory, had been recognized as an outstanding employee, held sensitive technical knowledge, and my math scores were especially strong. To the university administration, I was clearly far more capable than Jason, who had gotten in purely based on test scores. These days, the whole country was saying that women hold up half the sky. Many scientists and researchers were women. Some had even dedicated their entire lives to scientific progress. So Professor Shi did not, for a second, believe that being a woman meant I should give up my future just to support a man who wasn't even better than me. When he asked about the mark on my face, I didn't hide the truth. I told him directly that Jason had hit me. "Don't worry, Comrade Emily," he said. "Stay here and focus on your studies. Our country needs talents like you. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just go back and study in peace." Those words finally let me breathe. I was grateful, deeply grateful, that this top university didn't let gender bias cloud their judgment. They didn't believe Jason's lies or expect me to sacrifice everything just because I was a woman and a wife. I sincerely thanked the professor. After that, I returned to class. I don't know how the school leadership dealt with Jason afterward, but after he was called away once, he never again mentioned anything about me quitting school to go home and care for his mother. As for me, I poured myself completely into my studies. The next time Jason stopped me again, more than 2 weeks had already passed. "Emily, how long are you going to keep this up?" he asked, clearly frustrated. "It's been days. You haven't once asked me if I'm eating well, if I'm warm, if my clothes are even clean. What exactly are you trying to do?" I looked up at him for a long moment before even remembering that, yes, Jason was also here at the university. I rubbed my tired eyes. "First of all," I said calmly, "I'm not keeping anything up. Second, whether you're eating well, staying warm, or doing your laundry, none of that has anything to do with me. I already told you, we're getting a divorce. If you've come to terms with that, we can go file the papers right now. If not, then stay away from me. I have a lot of studying to do and no time to waste arguing with you." "Emily, are you serious? You really want a divorce?" Jason looked completely dumbfounded. "I thought I made that very clear the other day," I said coldly. His face was full of disbelief. "Just because I asked you to go home and take care of my mom, you're divorcing me? You've been giving me the cold shoulder for over 2 weeks. Isn't that a bit much?" Before I could respond, someone called out in the distance, "Jason." I looked up and saw a woman walking toward us. She wore a white dress, her long black hair smooth and cascading over her chest. She stopped beside Jason and smiled gently. "You must be his wife," she said, then turned to me with a look of concern. "I heard you left your injured mother-in-law behind and insisted on coming to school, and that you've been angry ever since Jason tried to talk to you about it. Forgive me for saying this, but as a daughter-in-law, you should be more filial. Otherwise, even a good man like Jason will eventually grow cold." Jason pressed his lips together but said nothing. "Was what Emily said just now true?" the woman asked curiously, cutting me off before I could speak. She looked back and forth between us with wide, dewy eyes, clearly enjoying the drama. "What were you two talking about just now? Emily, what did you say to make Jason so upset? Wow. Just a moment ago it was Jason, and now it's suddenly Jason, darling. How cozy." I gave her a dry smile. "Who are you exactly?" "This is a conversation between husband and wife. What does it have to do with you? You throwing yourself into this? Could it be you're hoping for something with your Jason, darling?" I sneered. The woman's name was Anya. In my past life, she was Jason's so-called soulmate from college, the same woman he protected at all costs, the one he pushed me aside for during my final year of promotion consideration. I just hadn't expected that in this life, Jason would reconnect with her barely 2 weeks after arriving at the university. Clearly, they were destined for each other. Anya's innocent, curious expression faltered when she met my eyes. She froze, then tears welled up immediately. How could you say that about me?" she cried. With a look of hurt and humiliation, she turned and ran, wiping her tears as her white dress fluttered in the wind. Her frail figure looked like a porcelain doll about to shatter, carefully crafted to evoke pity. "Emily, what the hell was that?" Jason turned to me, clearly distressed by Anya's dramatic exit. "What did you say?" Before he could say more, I slapped him across the face. He stared at me, stunned, holding his cheek. "Emily, what's wrong with you?" I slapped him again, harder this time. Jason raised his hand in anger, but I stepped back. "I'm right here on campus," I said coldly. "And you're already getting cozy with another woman. Aren't you afraid I'll report you both to the faculty?" Jason looked panicked. "Emily, nothing's going on between me and Anya. We're just friends. Soulmates." I nearly laughed out loud. "Soulmates?" I scoffed and brushed past him, heading back to the dorms. So far, they hadn't crossed any serious lines, so I wasn't planning to escalate it. But I also had no intention of wasting any more of my energy on either of them. Since Jason still didn't want to go through with the divorce, I let it drag on. Soon, the first semester ended. Because of my outstanding academic performance and my prior experience working at the military factory, I was given a classified assignment at a research institute that would last a year. No one knew about it. Naturally, I didn't tell Jason either. The year flew by. When the project at the institute wrapped up, I returned to school to complete the necessary graduation procedures. There were only 6 months left before I graduated, and I would be going straight to work at the research institute afterward. The moment I stepped back on campus, my long-lost roommates were thrilled. We decided to grab a meal together in the cafeteria. But as soon as we walked in, I was met with an all-too-familiar scene. Jason and Anya sitting closely together, practically touching, their body language intimate, like a pair of lovers in the throes of a new relationship. My roommate shot me an awkward glance. "Emily, I guess you didn't know. Your husband, Jason Miller, he's kind of a big deal here. His grades are excellent, and lots of girls secretly like him. That one there, she's the one who's been closest to him lately." I knew exactly who she was talking about, Anya. I nodded without saying anything. Jason had always been good-looking and academically strong. That's why, in our past life, Anya had refused to marry anyone else and remained single her whole life. She practically lived as his eternal flame. But of course, their closeness wasn't exactly a secret. The school had been whispering about it for a while. But since I, the wife, hadn't said anything, everyone just kept their opinions to themselves. Still, now that I was back, it was time to move the divorce forward. Without hesitation, I walked up to their table. Well, I said lightly. "Having a nice meal?" Both Jason and Anya froze. They looked up at me at the same time. "Emily?" Jason jumped up. "When did you get back? Where have you been this past year?" Unlike Jason's shock, Anya remained calm, her expression guarded as she stood beside him, eyeing me with quiet hostility. "I heard you two have been parading around campus like a proper couple," I said. "So what now, Jason? Is it time we finally get that divorce?" Jason's expression darkened, and he quickly stepped away from Anya. Anya, in turn, looked at me in disbelief. You really want a divorce?" My roommates exchanged glances, their faces full of disdain. They didn't say anything, but the meaning was clear. Anya's face flushed red, but she stood her ground and looked directly at me, as if demanding a final answer. "Do you really want a divorce?" Jason looked like he wanted to speak, but when he saw Anya's determined expression, something shifted in him. He reached out and tightly held her hand, then looked back at me. "Fine. If you want a divorce, I'll give it to you." I nodded. That same day, we went and filed the divorce papers. Right afterward, I headed straight to the principal's office. I handed over detailed documentation about what had gone on during the year I was gone, how Jason and Anya had gotten involved while I was away on assignment. Compared to Jason, who had good grades but questionable character, the principal promised to give me a proper response. A few days later, word got around. Anya had withdrawn from school. Of course, before doing so, she and Jason had gone and gotten a marriage certificate. My roommates were buzzing with gossip. "You won't believe it. The school gave them a choice. Only one of them could stay. And Anya actually volunteered to drop out so Jason could continue. Do you know how hard it is for a family to get a kid into college? And she just gave it all up for a man. I'll never understand it." I gave a bitter smile and shook my head. But it wasn't just her. She wasn't the only fool. In my past life, that fool was me. In this one, it was Anya. And the one who benefited both times was Jason Miller. I had to admit, whether in my past life or this one, Jason had a real talent for playing people. But after Anya left, Jason started showing up around me more and more. He said things like, "If only you weren't so stubborn, if you knew how to understand me better, we wouldn't have ended up divorced." He kept hinting, probing about where I had disappeared to that year and what my future plans were. I had a feeling the school was already beginning to talk. There were rumors that the school would select 3 students to join the research institute. My grades were excellent, but I had disappeared for a year, and no one knew where I had gone. Jason, who wasn't exactly stupid, grew suspicious that I had spent that year on some kind of classified mission, and now I might be a contender for one of the research institute slots. I ignored all of his attempts to test the waters. What Jason didn't know was that selecting candidates for the research institute was one of the very reasons I'd returned. And someone like him, who may have had decent grades on paper but had wasted most of his time clinging to Anya, was never even under my consideration. The day the list was announced came quickly. The school auditorium was packed, everyone nervously eyeing the school officials sitting on the stage. At the appointed time, the dean pulled out a document and began reading the names of the 3 chosen students. From where I stood at the side of the stage, I could see Jason's fists clenched tight. As the assistant read out the names, Zhou Weiguo, Zhang Chang, and Lu Zheng, I saw Jason's face go pale. His name wasn't called. Not a single one of the 3 names was his. Watching his expression, I was suddenly reminded of my past life. How I'd stood in front of Jason, who served as my review committee judge, like a criminal awaiting sentencing. Everyone else would say I was qualified, but Jason, my own husband, had condemned me over and over again. Coming back in this life and becoming the one in charge, watching Jason lose his dream before my eyes, was a satisfaction I hadn't expected to feel so strongly. And no, this wasn't abuse of power. Of the 3 I selected, Zhou Weiguo had better grades than Jason. Zhang Cheng had stronger hands-on abilities and practical scores, and Lu Zheng was a returnee, a brilliant talent with core technical knowledge that even I couldn't rival. Picking Jason over any of them would have been the real injustice. After reading the names, the principal said, "Now let's give a warm round of applause for Dr. Lin, who led this year's selection. Please come to the stage for a few words." The audience clapped. I stepped onto the stage. Jason, who had been sitting in the crowd, suddenly stood up. His eyes locked onto me, like I had done something to betray him. I calmly avoided his gaze, delivered my speech, and walked off stage. But just as I stepped outside the auditorium, someone grabbed my wrist hard. "Emily." Jason's eyes were bloodshot. "Why are you the one leading the Research Institute's selection? Why did you choose them and not me? You're doing this to get back at me, aren't you? You hate that I divorced you and married someone else." I shook off his hand and said coldly, "Do whatever you want." Behind me, Jason punched the wall in frustration. "Emily, you'll regret this." That same day, I was called into the administration office. Jason was already there, his neck stiff with resentment. The principal sighed. "Comrade Lin, it seems Jason here is very dissatisfied with the selection. Not only did he come to us, he also filed a complaint with the Research Institute, accusing you of abuse of power. So we need you to make a formal statement. Why did you choose the other 3 and not Jason? This way, Jason can also have some clarity." Jason turned pale but still glared at me, unwilling to back down. I let out a sigh and placed the prepared documents on the table. "Take a look for yourself," I said. Jason reluctantly looked through them. But the more he read, the dimmer the light in his eyes became. By the time he was done, he stumbled out of the principal's office like a man defeated. This was a complete and total loss. The dossier showed clearly that the other 3 candidates were superior to him in nearly every way. 2 of them had even published remarkable insights in their fields without fanfare. Zhou Weiguo had been personally received by a senior official. As for Jason, he had a slightly better GPA and a nice face. That was it. He was well liked on campus, yes, but students like him were a dime a dozen. Even among those, Jason wouldn't crack the top 10. And he had the nerve to accuse me of favoritism? That night, I left quietly with the 3 selected students. We disappeared from the public eye. I didn't return home for 20 years. And by then, I had become the director of the Research Institute. "Is this where you used to live?" My adopted son and daughter looked around the city where I had spent over a decade of my life, their eyes full of curiosity. I smiled. "Yes, look over there. That used to be the military factory. I worked there for 3 years. Unfortunately, it's now just an ordinary steel plant. It's nothing like how I remember it." "Wait, are you Emily Lin?" I hadn't expected the gatekeeper to still recognize me. He walked out from the security booth, surprised. "Oh my, it really is you, Dr. Lin. We heard you're working at the Research Institute now. When did you get back?" I chatted with him for a few moments, pleasantly surprised that he remembered me. But before we'd said much, a door to the side suddenly burst open. A man was being chased out by a woman wielding a broom. "Pa, I gave everything to your family, worked like a mule my whole life, and you dare mess around with other women? Get out," she yelled, slamming the door behind him. The man turned around with a dark expression, as if he wanted to argue, but then his eyes suddenly fell on us. He froze. It was Jason, much older now, thinner, his appearance changed, but still unmistakably him. The moment he saw me, he strode over in large steps. "Mom," my son instinctively stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. My daughter also gripped my arm tightly, standing protectively at my side. Jason looked at them both, then his eyes fixed on me. Emily, it really is you, you're back. I held no resentment toward the past anymore, so when I faced Jason again, I was calm. Seeing that we clearly knew each other, my son slowly stepped aside, though still watchful. Jason, however, stared at me, his voice tense. Emily, are they your children? You got remarried? I simply nodded and took my children with me to the government guest house, leaving that place behind. Even after all this time, I still found it laughable. How Jason seemed to think I would never remarry for his sake. It was true that for various reasons I could no longer have children of my own, but my husband loved me deeply. My son and daughter were the orphaned children of comrades who had given their lives for the country. They were kind, filial, and cherished me as their own mother. My career was fulfilling. My family life was peaceful. This life had been so much better than the last. That evening, I reunited with some old friends. One of them told me Jason now worked as a teacher at a local school. After our divorce and his public affair with Anya, his reputation had been badly damaged. And when I didn't select him during the Research Institute recruitment years ago, he wrote a letter accusing me of abuse of power. Although the school and the institute eventually investigated and confirmed the truth, the name Jason Miller was already marked with a big red flag. Each year, he tried to get into the institute, and each year he was rejected. He assumed I was still sabotaging him from behind the scenes, and sent in more letters accusing me. But unfortunately for him, I hadn't been involved in the selection process for years. And as I was repeatedly proven innocent, Jason's name was officially blacklisted by the institute. They had no place for someone so irrational. Even the military factory eventually refused to take him back. In the end, the only job he could get was as a clerical instructor at a school. As we talked about all this, someone mentioned Anya. They said that after marrying Jason, she became a full-time housewife. For years, she cared for his mother and raised their child, but their life was a chaotic mess. The two of them fought constantly and had practically become a neighborhood joke. I just smiled. The past was the past. In a few days, I would return to my post, and everything here, none of it had anything to do with me anymore. Bookmark back.